Are you clean or are you unclean? You may be wondering, what are you talking about? And why are you talking about this question anyways? Well, here's the thing. Cleanliness has a different number of meanings and connotations. On the surface level, it is obvious that we prefer cleanliness to uncleanliness, right? And we can all tell the difference between being clean and being unclean, right? So imagine this. Let's say you're going on vacation. Would you rather stay in a clean hotel or a not so clean hotel? In other words, a dirty hotel. Now, I'm sure most of us will say, well, the answer is obvious. I would rather stay in a clean hotel, of course. Well, okay, makes sense. And so the cleaner the hotel, the better it is for the guests as well, which is why if you go to hotels.com or booking.com or any one of those other sites, when it comes to writing a review about the place where you stayed, one of the categories that is always available is cleanliness, right? The cleanliness factor. And as you can imagine, the less clean it is, the lower the rating, and then the less guests in general would be willing to stay there. Now, it's the same thing with visiting clean cities, clean neighborhoods, clean houses, right? In fact, cleanliness is an important factor because it affects our health as well. And that said, this is a good way to transition into the gospel reflection for this sixth Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year B. You can find this gospel passage in the Gospel of St. Mark, chapter 1, verses 40 to 45. It's about Jesus healing a leper. And here's how the story goes. A leper came to Jesus and kneeling down, begged him and said, "If you wish, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, he stretched out his hand, touched him, and said to him, "I do will it. Be made clean." The leprosy left him immediately, and he was made clean. Now, in this story of healing, we're talking about leprosy. And in the ancient world, being unclean, quote unquote, unclean, is a reference to leprosy. So then what is leprosy? Well, the modern medical science calls it Hansen's disease. This disease causes infection in the various parts of the bodies and leads to damaging nerves and eventual decay. Over time, the person is no longer able to feel pain, and this leads to further physical deterioration. Now, the thing with leprosy is that it is visible. So if you look at someone who has this disease and is not treated, over time, their bodies become deformed and decay. And as a result, many people look at this and they shun the lepers because it appears that they are physically unclean. Now, here's an important thing to remember. Leprosy is curable. With the right treatment, it can be done. So then let's take a look at this gospel passage once again. There's this man who has leprosy. He came to Jesus and asked Jesus for healing, and he received healing. Those who have seen this man would know that he has leprosy because this disease is physical on the body and on the skin. So on a physical level, this man who was unclean has now been made clean. And this is easy to understand. He has been healed with this disease. But there's a deeper layer here that's important for us to examine in greater detail. You see, it's important to talk about spiritual cleanliness versus spiritual uncleanliness. Now, what does this mean? Take a look at the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 23, verses 25 to 28. Here's what it says. Jesus says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of cup and dish, but inside they are full of plunder and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, clean first the inside of the cup, so that the outside may also be clean. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrite! You are like whitewashed tombs, which appear beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of dead men's bone and filth of every kind. Even on the outside, you appear righteous, but inside you are filled with hypocrisy and evil doing. You see, this is Jesus' commentary on the Pharisees. But here's the point. It's easy to have this perception of cleanliness and pretending to be clean, especially on the outside where everyone can see. But it's not so much about what's on the outside, that is the facade, what other people can see, but it's also about cleanliness on the inside as well. Because ultimately, what's on the inside affects the outside. So here, there are two important points I'd like to share for us to reflect further on in this gospel passage. Number one, like the disease of leprosy that affects a person's physical appearance and health, the disease of sin affects a person's spiritual health. So then, what is sin? Well, sin, simply stated, is an offense against reason, truth, and right conscience. It is a failure in genuine love for God and neighbor caused by a perverse attachment to certain goods. It wounds the nature of man and injures human solidarity. It has been defined as an utterance, a deed, or a desire contrary to eternal law. And in case you wonder where this definition came from, it's from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph number 1849. And so, like the disease of leprosy, which affects a person's physical health, right? If you take a look at the spiritual health, whenever we sin, we become spiritually unclean. And if we continue to sin, we become more and more unclean. If we continue to remain in this state for a long time, the end result is spiritual death. Now, there's a cure for this, of course. It includes recognizing our sin, going to confession, making the effort to do better spiritually, to do better. And so that's important for us to consider, point number one, which then leads us to point number two and what I'd like to share here. Jesus can make us clean. You see, like the story of Jesus and the leper in this gospel, Jesus can make us clean too. Note what happened in the gospel reading. When the leper was made clean, he was told, "See that you go and tell no one anything, but go show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing what Moses prescribed. That will be proof for them." But what does he do instead? Here's what the gospel says. The man went away and began to publicize the whole matter. That's right. This leper cannot keep quiet about the fact that he has been healed, and he has to go around and tell everyone about this. This leper became a witness to what Jesus can do for him. And notice that this leper has faith. And he says, "If you wish, you can make me clean." And Jesus does what? He made him clean. And so in many ways too, like the leper, it's important for us to firstly recognize our spiritual leprosy and then going to Jesus and asking him to make us clean. Friends, on the sixth Sunday in Ordinary Time Year B, it's important for us to remember to pay attention to our spiritual life. If we're not careful, we can easily let sin enter into our life. And when it does, we have to be attentive to getting rid of it. You see, it's so easy for temptation out in the world that eventually leads us to sin. It's so easy to fall into it, but it's important to pay attention to it. As well, God can heal and make clean the areas in our lives that still needs to be cleaned. It's important that we trust, have faith in Jesus. But keep in mind, we must do our part as well to keep our spiritual life clean as well. And just like staying in a clean hotel, a clean city, a clean place, etc., it's important to be clean, not just physically, but also in our spiritual life. May God bless you.